I remember when the Q2 was released. I instantly fell in love with the classic minimalist design. The body was created from a single piece of metal with a fixed prime lens. The lens had a bright aperture, making it usable in most reasonable lighting situations. And even though it was fixed at 28 millimeters, the full frame, high megapixel sensor allowed for usable, digitally cropped images in camera. The back of the camera was also elegantly simple, with a screen and a minimal number of buttons. Manual controls harkened back to the SLRs of my youth, while the rangefinder style body made it easy to deploy from a bag. Finally, the weather sealing made it ideal for everyday carry and travel. For these reasons, it quickly became my dream camera. There are a few recent events that had me wondering whether I could recreate the essence of the Q2, but at a much cheaper price point. We were touring Diocletian's palace in Croatia when I noticed one of our group members was shooting with a Q2. If you haven't seen that video, I'll post a link here. I asked him how he liked it, and he said it was the perfect travel camera once you got used to using the digital zoom. Then, on our way home from that trip, we had a layover in Frankfurt, Germany. They had a Leica store in the airport, and I saw a Q3 and the newly released Deluxe 8. Finally, not long after we returned from our trip, I had a birthday and decided that a budget Q would be a perfect birthday gift to myself. To set a context for this build, let's look at the most recent iterations of the Q cameras. In May of 2023, the Q3 was released. It had the same lens, but it upped the ante with a 62 megapixel sensor. Due to this increase in megapixels, a 90 millimeter digital zoom option was added. Coincidentally, as I began to think about this project, a new variant to the Q3 was announced. In September of 2024, the Q343 was released. The same 62 megapixel sensor was used. However, the old 28 millimeter lens was replaced by a 43 millimeter 2.0 lens. In addition, the variety of digital zooms available had changed drastically. My quest for a Q substitute began in the 1-inch sensor compact camera market, which is all the rage now. I was mainly interested in the Sony RX100 line, more specifically the third through fifth generations. This is because those models have a 24 to 70 millimeter full frame equivalent zoom lens with an aperture range of just f1.8 to 2.8. They also have a solid magnesium body, although they are not weather sealed. Conveniently, they have a pop-up flash and a pop-up EVF in the corner, giving it rangefinder style handling. Finally, they are 100% pocketable. The downsides are they are quite expensive. You can get the fifth generation new from Sony for $1,000. This for an 8-year-old camera. Good used copies are difficult to find and are also quite expensive, given the overwhelming interest in advanced compact cameras these days. Finally, the BX1 batteries are absolutely tiny. There are quite a few Micro Four Thirds cameras that fit the mold. The first camera that came to mind was the Panasonic Lumix GX8 from 2015. The rugged, weather-sealed bodies are quite affordable now. More importantly, there are plenty of affordable, high-quality Micro Four Third lenses on the used market. It has a fully articulating screen, and interestingly, the EVS can tilt up to a full vertical position. Finally, even though this is an older camera, it does have IBIS. The downsides are that it uses a small battery, and I wasn't sure if new or reliable third-party batteries were available. Also, Micro Four Thirds sensors aren't known for their low light performance, and I do like to take pictures in the evenings. Two Leica cameras made the list. The first is the Deluxe 7. This camera is perhaps better known as the Panasonic Lumix LX100 Mark II. This pocketable camera has manual controls and a 24 to 75 full frame equivalent lens with an aperture range of just 1.7 to 2.8. Naturally, the lens is a Leica design. A unique feature of this camera is that it can shoot in multiple aspect ratios. The downsides are that used copies are relatively expensive, once again due to the interest in advanced compact cameras. Also, while being able to shoot in multiple aspect ratios is a novelty, it also decreases the maximum number of pixels because the full sensor is not used. Like many compact cameras on this list, the battery is quite small, but perhaps the biggest negative is that the telescoping zoom lens is prone to inhaling dust. Since this is a fixed lens camera, the dust cannot be removed without servicing the camera. I was really interested in a Deluxe 8 when it was announced. The updated body and controls made it look just like a mini Q. However, I was disappointed to learn that the sensor and lens were the same as the previous generation. Quite a few APS-C cameras made the candidate list. Given the rangefinder style bodies of many past and present Fujifilm cameras, it's not surprising that so many models made the list. For me, the XE3 and X Pro 2 are the leading candidates in the interchangeable lens category. These are weather-sealed, pocketable cameras. Also, a wide variety of high-quality Fuji and third-party lenses are available, both new and used. The X Pro 2 has added features such as a hybrid OVF, EVF, and two card slots for redundancy. The downsides are, as with all Fuji cameras currently, these cameras are quite expensive on the used market. Also, it's a known fact that fast, accurate focusing is not Fuji's strong point. Finally, they use smallish batteries, although not as small as those found in compact cameras. This list would not be complete without mentioning the Fuji X100 5 and 6. These are perhaps two of the most sought after cameras in the world. Demand has not relented since the X100 5 was released in 2020. Some of that is due to TikTok, and some of that is due to Fuji's reluctancy to meet demand with supply, but there's no denying the appeal of these fixed lens, rangefinder styled cameras. They have a relatively fast 35mm full frame equivalent fixed lens with a leaf shutter for flash enthusiasts, and installing a filter on that lens makes the camera a weather sealed setup. They also feature Fuji's unique hybrid viewfinder for both optical and electronic viewing. The 6 is perhaps the closest out-of-the-box APS-C rival to the Q, with its IBIS and 40 megapixel sensor. The two massive downsides are obvious if you've been following the camera market the past several years. These cameras are impossible to acquire new and are prohibitively expensive if you're lucky enough to find a used one for sale. There's a lot to like about Sony's latest APS-C offering. The magnesium weather-sealed body was updated in 2023. Also, the A6700 has Sony's AI-powered autofocusing, perhaps the most advanced focusing software hardware combination of all the cameras so far on this list. The camera has IBIS, a fully articulating screen, and sports a large battery. Additionally, there are plenty of first-party and third-party lenses available that cover the gambit of prices and focal lengths. All this at a reasonable price point. This was my first choice for my build, but was unseated at the last minute. On to the final category, the full-frame censored cameras. This lesser-known 8-year-old camera was perhaps the most direct, out-of-the-box rival to the older Q2. Recently discontinued, the RX1R Mark II has a relatively fast 35mm Zeiss lens backed by a 42 megapixel sensor. Like its much smaller 100 series siblings, the RX1R Mark II has a pop-up EVF in the corner, giving it that rangefinder style handling. The downsides are that copies are difficult to find, especially now that the camera is discontinued. I did see one or two for sale on the used market, but they were relatively expensive for an 8-year-old camera. Also, given its age, the camera has Sony's older color science and focusing system. This duo of cameras was released in September of 2023. The A7C II is an update to the original A7C and is based on the A7 IV. Meanwhile, the A7CR is a new compact variant using the 61 megapixel sensor from the A7R5. These cameras have Sony's latest sensors, color science, and focusing software. They both have IBIS and weather sealing. As with all current Sony interchangeable lens cameras, there are plenty of first-party and third-party lenses that cover the spectrum of price and focal lengths. Given their feature sets, I think these cameras are reasonably priced. The A7CR was way out of my budget, but given its 61 megapixel sensor and other advanced features, the body is arguably the closest substitute for the Q3. And the winner is? Well, my choice of body for my budget Q is the original A7C. I think it represented the best value amongst the cameras I was considering once the price dropped to $1299.99. At the time of purchase, this made it $100 cheaper than the A6700, which was my leading contender until the price drop. The A6700 is more feature-packed, but I like the advantages of a full-frame sensor, like low-light performance and the ability to create bokeh-licious shots. Plus, I've been wanting to try full-frame lens offerings from Sigma and Tamron. Now that I've decided on a body, I need to decide which lens to attach to it. To recap, the Q2 and Q3 have 28 mm lenses, while the newer Q3-43 has a 43 mm lens. Each generation of Q offered various simulated focal lengths via cropping, including the popular 35 and 55 mm focal lengths. Regardless of model, the Qs have compact, fast lenses with manual aperture and focusing controls. They are also weather sealed. For my build, I want a full frame lens. Most full frame Sony cameras can use APS-C lenses while shooting in crop mode, but I don't see the point of having a full frame sensor and not utilizing the entire thing. Also, I want a first party lens or one by Sigma or Tamron. As a primarily Canon RF shooter, I want to try some of these lenses. I want a lens with a constant aperture between f1.8 and 4.0. I figure this would naturally limit the size and cost. As for focal length, I like shooting at 24 and 50 mm, so those are at the top of my list. I had Fuji camera and lens combinations that shot at 35 mm full frame equivalent, but never got used to it. However, I'm willing to give the focal length another try as I keep hearing it's an ideal focal length for environmental portraiture. I don't know what to think about the 40 mm focal length. I wasn't sure if that was a compromise between a 35 mm and a 50 mm lens, or if it was a cop-out for people who couldn't commit. Finally, I prefer a manual aperture ring and weather sealing if possible. After many, many hours of watching lens reviews on YouTube, I decided on the Sony 24mm 2.8G lens. As you can see, it ticked many of my boxes. Plus, I just discovered it is weather sealed. The maximum aperture of 2.8 isn't the brightest, but it does make the lens very compact, as does the modern design. I figure there's no sense getting a compact full frame camera if you're just going to stick a big honking zoom lens on it. Okay, so if you're watching the video, this is the body that I ordered. It is the first generation A7C, and I wound up getting it for $1299.99. And I was watching some old videos, and it apparently was, I think, $1,800 when it was originally released. So I guess that's one good thing about Sony is they keep older cameras still in their lineup, and then you could buy them later at a new at a much lower price. So this one is, considerably cheaper than when it was released originally. So like I said, this is the original A7C. I believe I have to turn it the other way around though to get to the opening. Make sure I'm still in frame here. Okay. Now, what do we have here? Oh, the instructions and warranty. I'm sure everyone reads those very thoroughly and fills out their registration cards and send those in immediately, which I will do the same. Let's see, a flap here. What is this, a battery? Oh no, this is a charger. So very nice. It comes with a charger. Apple kind of looking at you right now. It comes with a camera strap, branded with A7C. I have something else in mind for this build, but we will put this aside in case we want to use it later. Now, one of the things I'm excited about is this battery. I've heard of this battery. This is the FZ1000, I think. Anyway, the Canons that I shoot with have the smaller LP17 battery, so they don't last very long. So I always have at least 2 of those with me when I go shooting. That's nice. Let's see what else. Okay, so here is, well, maybe we'll unbox this in a second because I see something else under there. And then, okay, I do see that it comes with a cord. So that's very nice. Looks like it's a USB-A to C, so I'll probably just use one of my high output USB-C chargers to charge the camera. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. The original A7C, first gen. Okay, wow, that is small. So it's very quite compact. I'll compare to my R8, which I thought was a very compact camera until seeing this one. Maybe I can do a side-by-side shot with that a little bit later. This camera actually is not wide enough to get them both in the same shot, but we'll do that. Here's the side panel. Oh wow, okay, so it's actually locking, so that's something new. Back LCD screen, which reminds me that I will have to get a screen protector for it. Although obviously you can do this. Want to. The grip. Now I've heard some folks complain that the grip is a little too shallow, so we'll have to see how that feels. Okay, and a top plate. Okay, very nice. It's smaller than I thought, but in the same time it's a little bit heavier than I thought it would be. Okay, let's move on to the lens. Now, if you're a regular Best Buy customer, you may recognize the tape. So yes, this was an open box. I bought it as an open box excellent example. I think it maybe saved $60 at most. It actually was much cheaper on KEH. Not that this is sponsored or anything, but I do tend to buy used stuff from KEH. And I think this one was more than $100 cheaper for an excellent copy on KEH. But I am a Best Buy Total Tech member, I think is the membership called. But anyway, you get a free 2-year warranty with everything you buy, as long as you keep the membership active. And that includes accidental damage. So that's a good feature for me, and I've definitely used it a couple of times. So anyway, this is the FE24, so for the full frame, 24mm f2.8. It is a G lens. So let's go ahead and open this up. Once again, I think I have to turn it maybe this way. Oh, instruction manuals. Once again, I will, as like everyone does, I will thoroughly read those. I'll fill out my registration card as soon as I can and mail that in. Okay, and here we have the lens. Okay, wow. So first impressions, very hefty. I mean, it feels like it's all metal, although I may be mistaken about that. This is one of the features that I was looking for. So it does have a manual aperture ring, a control button like so many of the Sony lenses have, autofocus manual focus switch. Oh, okay. And then you can turn it clicking on and off. Wow, so that's really nice. Comes with a lens cap, of course, 49mm threads. Oh, and the base cap. So the interesting thing about this cap here, you know, I've noticed before how Sony, their caps are gray. And I always thought that was because they use a lower quality of plastic than the rest of the materials, and therefore they couldn't quite get it black. But I just discovered this is so that you can use it as a gray card. So if you're having trouble establishing your white balance, you actually can shoot one of your caps. Oh, I just noticed this. I was about to set this aside, and then you can tell I'm a Canon shooter because I am not used to the lens hood being included in the purchase. So if you don't know that about Canon, you do not get hoods with your lenses unless it's the L lenses. So that's nice. I don't know if that's metal or plastic, but it's just nice that it's included. Okay, so this is from Hogue. I believe that's how you say that. Here you go. Nothing says hipster photographer like a square lens hood. Fuji guys, you know I'm talking to you. Here we go. This one was a little bit expensive, honestly. I'm glad this was one of the products where it went on sale for Prime Day and I got a few dollars back. So I'm glad I was able to do that. It is metal though, so it is nice. But I think at full price it was like $45. Okay, the final item is from a brand called Newer. Ordered plenty of stuff for them. They tend to make generally a little more affordable camera accessories. This is one of those rope neck straps. I've never had one of these before, so I was kind of interested in trying one. Now this particular one, I got it because I thought the orange there matched the Sony orange. So I thought that was pretty neat. So this one is black and orange. Now, I don't usually use a neck strap, so I'm a little bit concerned that these are not quick release. So you can't take it on and off very easily. But we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I will put all of this together. I won't bore you all with the details, particularly with, again, kind of threading this through the eyelids. But I'll put it all together and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the final build looks like. So this is with the square hood on, the lens, and then just the body. I did not put on the neck strap there because I think it would have interfered with the shot a little bit too much. But that's kind of what it looks like with the lens on. You get top down shot. You know, again, it's much smaller than I thought it would be. Just from the side. See if I can line that shot up. Okay, and then from the other side. You know, again, folks were saying that this is a little shallow, but I think that'll work. Now, I guess the issue is when you put bigger lenses on, I think people's fingers were having difficulty kind of wrapping around the grip or getting pinched there, but we'll have to see. I don't anticipate myself putting anything but primes on this, maybe a small zoom, so it's not like I'm going to put a 70 to 200 or anything like that on here, or 100 to 500. Okay, let me see if I can get... I do have my R8 here. Let me see if I can get them both in the shot. Now, previously, I thought this R8 was really small, but if you look at them side by side, see the R8 is considerably bigger. Now, it does have the 50mm 1.8 lens on there, so it's not obviously a direct one-to-one comparison, but that's kind of how they line up. Then the thickness for sure. Even though, I'll show you, even though the Canon uses a much smaller battery, you can see it's much taller. Now I do have this accessory grip here on the R8, so if you want apples to apples, I mean, you'd have to look at it before the red handle, but I mean, still, the Sony is just so much smaller. And then looking nose down, see if I can do this without dropping the cameras. You know, again, just, well, here, I'll line it up with the actual camera body, so that's what you're looking at. Is that straight? So, I mean, my goodness, it almost looks like an almost looks like an R3 compared to this A7C. Okay, then I'm gonna look at it like this. I mean, it is, well, I guess width-wise it's about the same, but you can see how much, I mean, how much taller the R8 is. And the R8 doesn't have IBIS, so this has the advantage of having IBIS. This doesn't even have IBIS in it. And it's still considerably larger. Now let me show you the batteries real quick. This is one thing I was looking forward to and talking about. So look at the size of the battery. Look at the difference. So this is the Sony battery. This is the little battery came with both this R8 and my RP. But you can see it's considerably, the Sony battery is considerably larger. So anytime I go shooting with the Canons, I take, honestly, I take 3 of them. I mean, they're just that small. Okay, so I think that does it for the build portion of the endeavor here, and then we'll take the camera out, maybe for a part 2. We'll do some shooting around Waikiki, maybe some other areas, kind of touristy areas here in Oahu, and we'll see how it handles. Well, if you stuck around this long, I appreciate it. Mahalo and thank you. Please consider dropping a like if you enjoyed the content. And please consider subscribing for part two when we actually take the camera out and see how it performs in the real world.